being able to light and shoot and cam up are just those are guarantees. Like if you can't do that, you wouldn't have even gotten the call.
Mhm.
And so it becomes less important because if you show up on set and you can't do something, it's almost like you don't know how to do this. Why doesn't it look this way?
Mhm.
Like it's a negative thing because it's something that is already expected.
Mhm.
And so a mistake that I think younger freelancers, not just DBs, make is they aren't good listeners.
Mhm.
And if you aren't a good listener, how can you take this projected idea and actually turn it into something?
Welcome to episode number 16. I'm your host, Benjamin Vomastic, and today we are joined by Eugene Wilson. Eugene was
Hey,
a camera operator on Hometown Summer, and Eugene works as a professional cinematographer in the industry. He works on both narrative and commercial work. How are we doing today, Eugene?
I'm good. I'm good. Cannot complain. How about yourself?
Excellent. Yeah, thanks. Can't complain either. So yeah, just jumping right into things. What got you into film, and what has your journey looked like so far?
Man, I didn't think that I was actually gonna do film. I'm a musician. I've played drums since I was like 7 years old. My dad, I guess certain family members will say before then, but to my knowledge, I remember playing at 7.
Uh-huh.
And I went to school for music. Was in marching band, jazz band, pep band, orchestra, everything as a percussionist. And I thought I was going to be writing music for films, for commercials, and ghost writing for artists and stuff like that. And during that journey, I ended up running into people who were doing films, and I didn't think that they were doing that good of a job. And so I kind of was just like, well, I'm going to try to see if I can do it a little bit better. Because as you know, if you're an artist and you're writing for a feature or for a short film, if the film isn't good, no one's going to ever hear the piece that you wrote. So
Right, absolutely.
that was like the biggest challenge. And so once I picked up a camera and started practicing on my own, I realized that it was something that I could do for a living. And then I just kind of made that transition. I still do music, but more so just for fun, as a
Yeah,
passion, as just a joy. But I learned that just because I did it for so long didn't mean it had to be my career.
right on. Yeah, no, that's a really cool journey, and yeah, I mean, I definitely resonate with that as well. I didn't get started in film either. I mean, I have an econ degree, and it was
Sweet.
really, it was kind of similar in a sense that I really was missing the sort of films that I make. Like they just kind of stopped making them, and
Mhm.
it's like I wanted to be a part of the process and help bring these sorts of films back. So
Yeah.
it wasn't even a planned thing. It was just kind of like kind of just got into it through that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And sometimes you never know. That's why you gotta really be prepared for any direction that your career ends up going in, because you never know.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, what's the biggest lesson you've learned so far through your cinematography journey?
The biggest lesson that I've learned is you got to be around like-minded people. You have to be around individuals that want to work as hard as you,
Hmm.
that have similar goals. Doesn't have to be the same goal, but similar is important. And just people that are that don't bring a lot of negativity in your life, because it all can affect your professional journey, whether it's just a friend, whether it's a family member, whatever it is. You just really have to always make sure that relationships are taken care of, relationships are kind of prioritized, because as you go through the years as an entrepreneur, as a freelancer, you need relationships, and you need healthy relationships, and you never know when the person that you maybe argue with in the past uh, may have a project for you, or you may come around an opportunity to invest in something together, and if you allow those bad moments to get in the way, then you never know what that relationship could have brought to the table later on, like in your career.
Yeah, those are such good answers. Definitely. I mean, for me as well, just being able to read screenplays written by writers who are much better than me and getting feedback
Mm-hmm.
from writers who are much better and directors and whatnot. I mean, yeah, I think in the creative industry, or I mean, just any industry in general, like, absolutely, just being around like-minded
Yeah,
people who are more experienced and more talented, that just pays such great dividends. And also just the negativity as well. I mean, that shit is so killer. Like,
it
I
is.
can't
It
stand
is.
it. It's to the point where, like, if I see people posting negative stuff on social media or whatever the case may be, like, I just like immediately block them. I don't want to see it. I don't, because it compounds, and it
It does.
really, I don't think you realize how bad it really is until, like, you just separate yourself from it and realize how much better your life is, because it's just so unnecessary.
Absolutely. It is, man. And it's like you said, you don't recognize it, and when you do recognize it, it's almost too late.
Yeah.
And some people don't understand that it affects your decision making when you're at work or away from work.
Hmm.
And when you show up to do a project, you don't want any of that, uh, worry or weight on your shoulders or on your mind, because it all influences your creativity when you're on set.
Absolutely. Staying in a similar vein, what's the best piece of advice you've received with respect to cinematography?
Yeah, the best piece of advice came from one of my partners in Lansing. His name is Dave,
Mhm.
and he's an OG in the game. And he mentioned to me early on, this was maybe like 2017.
Mhm.
He was like, if you want to last in this career, he said the secret sauce is to just never stop.
Mhm.
He was like, you have people that go through droughts where they're doing really well, doing bad, doing really well, doing bad, and along that timeline they just stop or they take a break and try to come back. He was saying, don't do any of that. So
Mhm.
if it gets hard, he said, just keep shooting. If it's going great, just keep shooting. If you are tired or you can't pick up projects or you have to pick up a full-time job
Mhm.
because you can't afford whatever it might be, do all of that, but just keep shooting. And doing that, always having that in the back of my mind of just don't stop. Because at the end of the day, if you do stop, then you will never know. But at least if you keep going at it over and over and over again, you may get an answer.
Yeah, that is great advice. And so I'm curious, if you are going through a bit of a drought with respect to finding projects, does that mean that maybe you should work on some personal projects in the interim?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I, so it doesn't just mean that. There's uh, different circumstances calls for different like reactions or
Mhm.
possibilities, I guess is a better way to say it.
Yeah.
And so if you're having a hard time getting clients, then yeah, maybe doing pitch decks, maybe shooting passion projects, spec work, films, however you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
um but another option is to maybe you use that time to actually get better with the branding side of things.
Okay.
It just depends on what it is that you need to fix within that business. Like, what's the
Yeah.
problem at its core? Is it a branding issue? Is it a portfolio issue? Is it a not having the team around you issue? Is it not knowing enough people? Because then you wouldn't spend time doing as many passion projects if you had a portfolio, but you just don't know anybody. You
Yeah.
might spend that time doing network events and going to conferences and DMing people on social media, going to rental houses, or like whatever that may look like. So it just depends on what exactly you have going on. But there's always a way for you to just keep going and keep going.
Solid advice. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that makes a lot of sense. Just figuring out what the issue is and working on that. It might not even be a cinematography specific thing.
That's true, man. I mean, because if no one knows you,
Yeah,
who's gonna hire you?
right. Exactly.
And so, and when you get hired, if you do a good job, then they may call you back. And that's sometimes not even guaranteed. Sometimes you do a phenomenal job, but I've been in situations where I was the fourth DP on the list. If it's something that's for a major brand, or it's like a regional commercial or something like that, I may have not been their first option, but I was a great substitute for that time being. So at least they know if they can't get their main guy, they can get me. But I can't use that as a way, or I can't take that as discouragement.
Right.
I just need to accept the fact that I was a backup for this specific project. And even if they don't call back, it doesn't mean they don't like me. I just need to keep shooting so that way I can be on someone else's list as their
Yeah.
number one guy. And you never know, because sometimes, I mean, I've been in some unique situations where you were a number two guy
Hmm.
and you became a number one guy because the other person elevated, or he just couldn't take on the projects because he was
Yeah.
too busy or something like that. So you never know who's looking, and you never know what projects come around. But if I know, if you stop, you will never know. And if you don't aim to just keep developing whatever skill set and whatever knowledge that you need, you will also never know.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that attitude a lot. Definitely, you
Hmm.
can't have a big ego or get your feelings hurt. I mean, it's just a recipe for disaster, I think, for
Yeah.
the industry. But
You,
yeah.
I'm gonna tell you this, man, because like us working on the film together and me working under Rishi,
Mhm.
I know a lot of DPs that won't work with newer DPs or
Mhm.
work under a certain DP as a cam op if the DP doesn't have a certain amount of experience or worked on these type of projects and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when I talked to Rishi, he was like, "Yeah, I don't know if this is something that you actually do."
Mhm.
And I think that's why when we spoke, I was like, well, these days, since they're closer, I know that I won't get booked for these days, but
Mhm.
for the other ones, since it's so far out, I don't want to, hold a spot that someone else could take and then have
Yeah.
to back out later or anything. And I told him the same exact thing. I was like, it's not that I wouldn't. Like, if I'm not booked, I said, I got you. I'm like,
Yeah.
why, why not? Whether I might learn something from you, you might ask me something, and I might maybe a good resource at that time, but at the end of the day, it's just about being able to create a network of in the workplace of individuals that know you, that like you, that appreciate what you do. And then
Yeah.
same thing, likewise, when you meet other people who are writers, directors, actors, and it's a community thing. And if you are too one dimensional, it can hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it can never be a bad thing getting on set. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I really appreciate you helping out.
Definitely.
Yeah. Changing gears a little bit, what are some of the most
Yeah.
common mistakes you see beginning cinematographers make, and how can they
Mhm.
fix these issues?
This is probably one of my favorite questions because um, a lot of DPs, not higher end DPs, but like up and coming
Hmm.
DPs, they like to focus on the look of a film,
Hmm.
but after a certain level, if once you're at least a mid tier DP, being able to light and shoot and cam up are just those are guarantees. Like if you can't do that, you wouldn't have even gotten the call.
Hmm.
And so it becomes less important because if you show up on set and you can't do something, it's almost like you don't know how to do this. Why doesn't it look this way?
Hmm.
Like it's a negative thing because it's something that is already expected.
Hmm.
And so a mistake that I think younger freelancers, not just DBs, make is they aren't good listeners.
Hmm.
And if you aren't a good listener, how can you take this projected idea and actually turn it into something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the number one thing. And then the number two thing, going back to it not always being about the image, but being a DP is a management position.
Mm-hmm.
You're always negotiating with the director. You're working with the producers when it comes to trying to keep budgets low for the camera department, whatever stuff that you may need to bring in.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in charge of 20 different people, you have different emotions, different personalities.
Yeah,
You have
absolutely.
to, like, I'll give you an example. Um, let's say you're trying to go for a shot and your focus is very thin. You're at like a 1.5 or something like that aperture. And the focus puller is having a hard time keeping focus on something. How do you react to that? You have a light go out because a bulb breaks and it was like your key light, your key source of light. How do you react to that? If you get upset, you get angry, then you have everybody else around you that changes the whole vibe of the room.
Yeah.
So it's more, I've been rehired more times because of how I handled certain things on set and the maturity level or with just those specific situations than I have at least to my knowledge of like, yeah, man, Gene is like a really good DP. He lights very well, he shoots very well, even though I do all those things well. But like, this goes back to saying that all of that is expected already. If
Yeah.
I show up not being able to do that, then they're like, what's on your website doesn't correlate to what you're actually bringing to the table now. So it's like, what else do you have to offer with that? And then the third thing, which is also a pretty big thing, is I think people don't understand that being creative is a skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't practice trying to be creative, then you just will never get more creative. You see certain films and it's like, oh, how did they do this shot? Or how did he think of this? How did he think of that? And it's like, well, he thought about it because he utilized his life experiences. Maybe he traveled to Paris and as he's walking on the ground, he sees how the light fixtures on the street kind
Yeah.
of illuminate on the ground as the ground is wet, and it's like, oh, I gotta take a picture. I gotta remember this. And
Yeah.
next thing you know, you're shooting a film out in your hometown, and it's to wet the ground, to show this or show that because this is authentic. This makes people feel this way. This, and so there's a whole lot of like work to be done to like make yourself more creative.
Yeah.
And if you can't make yourself more creative or at least work on that, then it goes back to if you're telling me a sci-fi story and I just don't see the vision,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to look at me and like, okay, there's a big disconnect here. I can't work with him as a DP because he's not getting me.
Yeah.
And, so, and I'm not saying that it has to be sci-fi because it could be drama. It could be a love story. It can be a romantic. It could be a kids movie, a comedy, whatever it may be. But if you aren't in tune with those different things and learning how to take life experiences and turn it into creativity, I mean, that hinders you a lot.
Oh yeah. Man, you're just dropping knowledge bombs. You're
Um,
giving such great answers. I'm learning so much just listening to you,
oh,
and
okay. Sweet, man.
resonating with so much as well. I mean, that's so underrated what you mentioned about
Mm-hmm.
like the leadership ability and the interpersonal communication skills.
Yeah.
I mean, I can say for sure there are people that I've worked with, not this past movie, but in previous projects, where it's like these people are impossible to communicate with, and
Mm-hmm.
they're losing their patience, and they're just bringing the entire vibe of the set down to the point where people just aren't having a good time. It's like, yeah, I'm never going to work with this person again.
Yeah.
And if anyone asks me about them, I'm going to be honest and say, like, this was my experience with them. And that is just so killer because, yeah, I mean, if you can be a great cinematographer, sound person, gaffer, whatever, actor,
Mm-hmm.
but if you're just miserable to work with, no one's going to want to work with you. And then it's
Exactly.
end for you.
Exactly. Exactly. Either they'll rather take someone that has a little less experience.
Yeah.
And this goes back to now the backup guy ends up becoming the main guy because of whatever happened before he got there.
Yeah.
And so you never know, man. Relationships are important, and I think people sometimes assume that a person just wakes up and like is creative,
Hmm.
and it's like, no. I mean, some people may have an advantage. Don't get me wrong, but being creative as a DP is also different than being creative as a writer.
Hmm.
So it's if you're a writer, I mean, most people already watch a lot of movies,
Yes.
but what you take away from a vacation can, I mean, I'm pretty sure if everyone sat down and thought about their last vacation that they went on from the time that they got off the plane to the time that they got back home, I think everybody would say that that trip itself could have been a movie.
Hmm. Oh
So
yeah.
like if you take that trip and you're like, all right, well, when I got off the plane, what shot would have made the audience feel like, yeah, hooray, we made it, we're about to go party? Like, is it a drone shot? No, maybe too wide. Is it an arcing shot from above that lands on a close up? Okay, if we're going to do that, what equipment do we need? What lens do we need? Do we need zoom lenses or do we want to use fixed lenses? Do we want it to be soft light, hard light? How does that make, you, at least for myself, and maybe I'm gonna, maybe I'm gonna be a little more, um what's the word I'm looking for, enthusiastic about it,
Hmm.
because that's how my brain works. Wherever I end up going, there's been times I'm driving on the freeway and I'm like, man, I wish I could just like take a picture of this right here, because I try to, you try to do it with your phone and it's like, that's not really how it was. But I've marked locations on my Google Maps for whenever I get the opportunity to shoot the next car commercial. That I'm like, okay, this little curve here would be great, or this straightaway here would be great with the trees and how this is lined up. And so, at least how my brain works, I'm always thinking that way. And I've definitely seen from the time that I started from now or to now, how much that has increased just my knowledge in uh, my creativeness overall.
Oh yeah. 100%. I mean, I'm thinking about these not like in terms of lenses and whatnot because I'm not a cinematographer, but
Mm-hmm.
I definitely when I go through my day, I definitely think about things like, oh, this would be a cool spot to have a scene,
Yep.
or this person made me feel this way and it was very unique, and what were they doing? And
Yeah.
these kinds of character traits like that make a good movie character. Or, I mean, I do comedy
Now,
movies and I'm always thinking about, like, what would be a funny thing to say here, or it would be really funny if this person did this or
yeah.
whatnot. And yeah, no, I'm definitely always thinking
Now,
about.
what if you didn't do that, and then someone, you had a commercial client come to you and say, "Hey, I wanted to do this comedic commercial featuring this person or this product," and you've never even thought about any of that before.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
Imagine the
you'd be super rusty.
disadvantage you would be at
Yeah,
just from the get go. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, rusty, and once you get the juices flowing, you're just not going to be as talented or be able to put out as good of work as you would if you're
mhm.
constantly practicing. And yeah, I mean, the beauty is, sounds like both of us, I mean, sounds like you really love your craft and I love mine. And so it's not like work, so to speak. It's like,
Yeah.
it's just how things are. It's the
Yeah, I
fact.
know. And it's dangerous sometimes too, man, because then it's not work, even though it is work. And so it's like, because it doesn't always feel like work, you'll mess around and be working, 14, 15 hours a day and,
Yeah.
you
No,
know,
I've been
and,
there.
and,
Yeah.
and feel good about it. But whenever that happens, it's a reminder that I'm in the right field. Because
Yeah.
if I
Oh, yeah.
didn't want to do it at all, then that lets me know that I'm not in the right field.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. What are some things about cinematography that the average audience member probably doesn't even realize or appreciate when they're watching a movie?
Hmm. You know, I think the average person because it's so easy to get your hands on the camera,
Hmm.
I don't think they really have an idea of how hard it really is.
Hmm.
Because anybody can, and this is when I really started considering myself a DP and just started branding as a DP. What happened was I realized anybody can take a camera and shoot something and make it the way that they want it to be.
Hmm.
But the skill is being able to take an idea and shoot something to fulfill the need of someone else.
Hmm.
Because I may naturally shoot warmer, but the film calls for green and blue and grainy.
Hmm.
Can I make that happen as an artist?
Hmm.
And once you start realizing that you're creating art not just for yourself, that's where it really becomes hard. And I guarantee that for a person that is not in our field, that just watches a lot of movies, or may have a camera and take pictures at the family gathering and stuff like that. Not saying there's anything wrong with that, right? But if you take the movie like The Creator,
Hmm.
you take the movie um like what's another one, Moonlight or something,
Hmm.
that's very very detailed on, in particular, on how it looks,
Hmm.
and you put them behind the camera and you let them see how it feels to point it at something and have the director look at you like, this isn't what we talked about,
Hmm.
this doesn't look like how you said it was going to look, then it'll click in of like, oh, okay, I see. Yeah, this is it can be challenging to, to do. And I think if they had that experience, you'll have more people appreciate
Yeah.
and understand the difficulty in making things feel so real when you watch it through the lens.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. And the next question was kind of in the same exact vein.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just go ahead and ask it while we're on the topic is how do you make your cinematography pop out in the age of streaming and in the age of everyone has access to a good camera? How do
Mm-hmm.
you make that work?
So, I know this is always cliche, right? It's because it's not really about the camera.
Hmm.
And until you get access to better equipment, you realize the pros and you realize that a lot of stuff could have still been done beforehand if you would have just knew other techniques
Hmm.
or knew exactly what you need.
Yeah.
And because of that, and I'll give an example. Um, you have like consistency throughout the film of the total piece having a certain vibe throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
No matter if you give an amateur a Venice 2 or Alexa, if they can't keep a consistent look throughout the film with a cheap camera, they're not going to be able to do it with an expensive camera.
Yeah.
So that's one strike already, where you have the therapy office that's supposed to feel a certain way. You go out and about and you shoot 100 different other scenes, and then when it's time to come back to that therapy office, now it looks different, and it's like, well, I thought the therapy office was supposed to feel this way. That's a huge difference there. And then there's also understanding the camera.
Yeah.
Shooting with Sony is not like shooting with Arri. Shooting with Arri is not like shooting with Red. Shooting with Red is not like shooting with Panasonic or whatever brand you go with. And so if you just because you switch to different lenses and you switch to a different camera, if you don't have the proper toolkit built around it, then basically you just create a bigger problem.
Mm.
Um, so like whenever I'm shooting like smaller stuff and they don't have a budget for a focus puller, uh, for narrative, because it's very shot selected,
Hmm.
you can sometimes work around it. If you're operating gimbal or you're doing anything like fast pace and you don't have one, sometimes I may recommend like, hey, we could shoot interviews and stuff like that with, non autofocus glass. But for this section here, maybe we should use autofocus glass so that way, everything is not out of focus. And so, uh, you just really have to know how to control your your tools. And I think that even if you give someone who doesn't have a lot of experience, if you upgrade their camera package, I don't know if they actually know how to work that tool
Mm-hmm.
to its best, especially.
Yeah.
Um, and another thing I want to actually mention is something as simple as skin tones.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if you're shooting on a Blackmagic Pocket camera, skin tones and how you expose for skin tones and how you color balance for skin tones is going to be different on this other camera.
Mm-hmm.
And so, regardless, you still have to practice with them. Um, and I think it also comes down to the creativity aspect. I think that if you gave someone a Sony Venice and you gave me a GH5, depending on the locations, depending on the story,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that I can still have an advantage of how it looks and on what's in the frame.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that people don't talk about is the acting. It doesn't matter how good your shot looks. If the audio is bad and the
Oh yeah.
acting is bad, no one's going to watch the film.
Yep.
And so, you know, even though cameras are easier to access, there's still a lot to it that even myself and I know a few other people can. I'm like for myself, I'm really good at shooting with bad cameras.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I understand the exposure and I understand uh, how to balance things out and work like the workarounds. But so you gotta be able to control the tool that you're using. And so if people can do that, then great. But otherwise, I don't. I think even though the camera is easy to access, um, they might not have the proper toolkit overall, to do what they need to do.
Yeah, that's such a great answer and something that I didn't even think about. But I mean, the second you said it, it was like obvious that just maintaining that look, that same look throughout
Mm-hmm.
the whole film, like, that's for sure something that yeah, I
It's
never.
hard.
A lot
It's
of people
hard.
never
You
think
gotta take
about.
notes. You gotta take notes. It's hard, man. It's
Yeah,
and hard in a good way. Like it's not like obviously impossible, but it's challenging because of the detail.
yeah,
That's what it comes down to.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I mean, it's just not. You outlined well that it's not like, oh, we have this great camera. There's nothing to worry about. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything's just going to be great, and like that's
Yeah, because imagine you have this great camera and you don't know how to light properly,
right.
or you don't understand. You have been shooting with a certain camera and you don't understand. Like you think the image is looking good, but you don't get that this camera leans more magenta and skin tones than it does uh you know uh green or whatever. I'm just trying to give an example, but if you don't understand the camera and then you also don't know how to light it, it doesn't matter how expensive or how nice the lenses are or anything like that. At the end of it, when you send it to the colorist, they're going to be like, you're going to be telling him, hey, can you fix it? Can you make this brighter? Can you make this darker? Can you make his face not look like this? And he's going to be like, well, you shot it in total wrong color temperature.
Yeah,
So yeah, it just depends on the person that has the tool.
yeah, yeah, 100%. And yeah, just the last thing about this, I completely resonate with you, and I've said this a few times
Hmm.
before on some podcasts, but 100%. If you have the choice between a super great sound setup and an okay camera, or an okay sound setup and a great camera, you always choose the super great sound setup over the
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely, man, absolutely. Other than that, no one's gonna watch it.
yeah. No, yeah, sound is just so important.
Yeah, it's so important, man. But definitely.
Absolutely. This one I'm really curious about. I have no
Okay.
idea how you're going to respond to this. What are your thoughts on CGI and AI with respect to cinematography and filmmaking?
I think it's a fantastic tool for our market.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, it can be taken advantage of, right?
Mhm.
depending on the company that's using it. But for what I use it for, pitch decks, drawing ideas, drawing lighting inspiration, I think it's fantastic. I think it speeds up workflow.
Yeah.
Same thing for shot sheets, shot list,
Mhm.
all of that stuff. So I think it's a fantastic tool. And I mean, even all the way from the apps that we have that help with color temperature and exposure, and then you can take pictures, upload them, and then with a blink have a whole shot list done for you. There's been times you go to you can go to chat gpt and you can have an issue trying to figure out how do you express something through the lens for the audience to feel a certain way, and it's
Yeah.
like you're having a conversation with the robot, and it's like, wow, I didn't think of it this way. And so it's the how I look at it is to be great at film, it's about the preparation.
Mhm.
If you can prepare well, you can perform well. And those AI tools help you perform well and help you prepare well.
Mhm.
And CGI in general is just kind of out of this world these days. And so it's all just more tools.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's a good way of thinking about it. I'm curious, do you have any fears at all about generative AI replacing cinematographers in any way?
You know, I did at first.
Mhm.
Um, but it's one of those things where there's evil things that happen everywhere.
Mhm.
And so absolutely, right? If you're gonna try to make movies solely just off of CGI,
Mhm.
if you're gonna try to build robots in the place of us to just hold camera and operate for us, then of course, right, that will kill many jobs in the industry.
Mhm.
But I think that it's all about what is being used for good and what people are being used for bad, right? And so I don't really have fears myself personally, just because regardless, I always have the mindset is I'm gonna figure it out.
Mhm.
Whether it's in the same industry, different industry, whatever it may be, whatever life brings, I'm gonna figure it out. And so I will always be on the side of using it for good,
Yeah.
using it as a tool, not a replacement. And as long as that is the goal for our industry, then I'm cool with it. But if the goal is to replace, then obviously I wouldn't agree with that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I guess I don't know enough about the technical side of cameras to have a deep enough understanding about what threat it potentially could play. I mean, I know, like, with respect to acting, directing, and writing, it
Mm-hmm.
definitely lacks that human touch and just can't connect with an AI created story or AI acting. Like, even if
Yeah,
you could create like a perfect image with a perfect person and whatnot, it it's not a human, and you're going to know that. Like, it's not like the people, the quote unquote people in the movie aren't going to mimic what an actual person looks like or says or does.
mm-hmm.
It's very nuanced human things that we do that we're all subconsciously aware of that just would not work in a
Absolutely.
movie. And so it's a thing that for sure I when there was the global mass freakout, like when ChatGPT and Sora were starting to be generated, and what does this all mean and everything, and then I kind of just took a step back and understood the tools a bit more. That really calmed my ease. I just I don't see how AI could replace humans
Mm-hmm.
in the
I agree.
respect at
I
all.
I think a fully integrated CGI commercial film or anything that everything from the actors to the lighting is all made within the computer. I think is a very specific type of project.
Yeah.
I think it's for me, it's almost like people who watch anime.
Hmm.
That type of CGI is its own thing.
Yes.
And people are fans of that. And I think that there's a category for people to be fans of AI generated content, which is great. And I think that you would still have people involved because you need people who can still assist with the editing and coloring, right?
Yeah.
That can still give feedback to tweak it because the computer isn't always going to get it right.
Yep.
So there's still jobs in the market for that. I
Yeah.
think that it's just a particular look. And the reason why I say using it as a tool instead of a replacement, because if it's used as a tool, then it's just used as another option for a type of production.
Hmm.
Not a way to say, you know what, we're not going to do anything in person. All of our films are going to be CGI. And it's like, we don't need you guys anymore. And, as long as it's just a type of filmmaking, then I don't see any issues with it. I think that it's pretty cool. I see the capabilities in those programs are out of this world because some of the creations that come out of it are mind blowing. It's like, wow, like how the heck did you know, put all of this together? And it's like, well, we sourced this, we sourced that, made this, brought this together, did move this, and then you put it all together, and boom, this is what we got, and it looks great and it's interesting. But like I said, it's tools that we can be able to have in our pocket as an industry.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I completely agree and resonate with everything you said. And I hear a lot of seasoned veterans in the industry saying very similar things to what you
Mm-hmm.
said, which is encouraging for sure. I guess just my last question on this subject
Yeah.
is, would we be missing a human touch if you theoretically created a robot to hold a camera? Like, could we run into issues where you're not dealing with a human and like it's you just won't be able to get the same look you could get if you were communicating with a human back and forth about how to achieve the shot?
Uh, I think it would be extremely hard to add a human touch to a robot with a camera.
Yeah.
I think that you can program a robot to hold a camera, right? Obviously, and hold it static and have it track a specific subject.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of like you're shooting a documentary and you have a group of people having barbershop talk inside of a barbershop, and
Yeah.
as
Okay.
you're focused on someone and then someone walks in the door knowing to go and turn and get the person coming in the door, and then after their handshake you rack focus back to the person you were at that's talk. I think that would be very challenging to program a robot to have that type of feeling to understand how to follow conversation because you're not following a point on the screen, you're following conversation at that point.
Yeah.
And
Oh my
so,
god, that's such a great example.
yeah, so it would be difficult. It would be difficult to do that for sure.
Yeah. No, that sounds like impossible or borderline impossible. It's
Hmm.
going to be like worth way more trouble than it would be to
It
just
would be, and it
yeah.
would be cheaper at that point to just hire somebody to come out
Yeah.
and do it.
Exactly.
So,
No,
you know,
that's such a great example though. Like I would not have thought of that, and that's definitely like a really strong counter argument
mhm.
to the people saying that we can just get AI to replace camera
Yeah,
operators. And yeah, I mean, even from I mean that brought up the idea in my head. Even from narrative, I mean, if you're doing improv
hmm,
or sometimes things happen in scenes that aren't. There's just the magic of being in the moment when you're shooting a movie,
hmm,
and something that a robot would just completely miss
absolutely,
focus and whatnot.
yeah,
That it is just there, like that inexperienced camera operator would no problem. And
yep,
yeah,
definitely,
yeah. So changing gears, I see you travel a lot. It seems like you do a lot of work in Florida. What's
yeah. I've
your
been,
experience been like traveling for work? And do you have any favorite travel spots to do some work?
you know, I like Florida during the wintertime.
Oh yeah, me too.
Um, so a lot. That's how it really started.
Yeah.
It started off this was like 2017, and when the wintertime would come, I would just get on Instagram and just like reach out to like 50, 60 different music artists
Yeah.
that's in Florida. And I'm like, hey, look, I'll take half the price if you fly me down here to shoot these music videos. And I only have to get one person to buy a plane ticket because I'll already be out there, and
Mhm.
I'll just stay like weeks at a time.
Mhm.
And man, I would do that. I did that for about 2 years, and then was able to work on some features a little bit after that. That was out in Florida. And then some of the connections I had, they ended up moving out of Florida. And then obviously I started to have kids and stuff. And so going to Florida during the wintertime hasn't been as much now,
Mhm. Okay.
because during the wintertime I try to travel with family because that's like the slower part of the
Yeah.
year for work. And
Yeah.
so now whenever I'm traveling, most of that travel is happening during the summertime. I went to New York a few times last year. Um, this year I did some traveling, but it was all like a lot of local stuff: Chicago, Ohio. Nothing. Let me see. I might be missing one because maybe I did. My wife would know for sure because she keeps track of like, you went here, you went here, you went here, and I'm like, okay, all right, no more traveling. But it's I don't really have any favorite spots. I just like to be in different areas and do what I love. It's always nice. For each trip, I try to bring something inspirational back from it, new connections, uh,
Yeah.
or just inspiration from that project or from wherever I was staying in that location. And so uh, it's fun.
Yeah, definitely. You have a favorite spot you've traveled to?
Um, Not really, if I'm being honest.
Mhm.
I know I mentioned Florida. I did a lot of stuff in Toronto. Um, did some stuff in uh, Texas. Did some stuff in New York. So it's like all those places are great to go to,
Mhm.
but I really like being in Michigan. You
Yeah.
know, Michigan is it's a safe place, not overly crowded. It's not
Yeah.
too much commotion out here. It's pretty nice. So the other locations, another word, I went to Virginia, went to DC,
Mhm.
um, and I went somewhere else actually in Virginia, out in the mountains this year. I
Mhm.
cannot remember the city, but all like I said, all those places are great to visit. But I
Yeah.
do I do like Michigan.
Yeah. No, I'm with you 100%. I do love getting some travel in, but yeah, no, Michigan's definitely home, and
Hmm.
everything you said 100%. Also, something you forgot that I think is pretty big.
Yeah,
It's pretty cheap.
yeah. Compared to everything else, absolutely.
You mentioned New York and Chicago, and yeah, those.
Hmm. Yeah, I went to when I went to Chicago. Um, we got a hotel, and I think the hotel was like, I don't know, like 125 for the night.
Mhm.
And in Michigan, a hotel for 125 a night is usually a pretty good hotel.
Oh yeah,
And I get there and I'm like, whoa, I'm like, okay, this is not how it looks on the pictures. And my wife laughs because she's like, you have to zoom in on the pictures because she calls it falling for my own tactics because I used to do real estate photography. And so she was like, you've done this. Like, you know how to make the pictures look all big and grand. And it's like, but then you get there and it's like, no, it's not like the picture.
yeah,
And so we left there and then we ended up having to get a hotel that was end up being like $400 a night to actually get something that was like nice.
yeah,
And yeah, I was like, man, like this is different. It's different.
yeah.
If I spend $400 a night at a hotel in Michigan,
You-
I mean, I get everything.
In luxury.
Yeah, I get
Yeah,
everything. So
yeah.
it's different.
Do you have a favorite project you worked on?
Um, this year I do,
Hmm.
and it was a project that Oh, I guess these are other states I went to this year. We went to Florida, or we went to Orlando, Florida, San Diego, California,
Mhm.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and then we went to um, Milwaukee.
Mhm.
And that project focused on childcare and the importance of childcare, the challenges of childcare, how it cannot be affordable, the certain rights that the government is trying to take, the experiences of people who grew up as a first, um, as a what am I trying to say? They grew up with parents who were immigrants, and so
Yeah.
they're firstborn Americans,
Right.
and so they they tell their experience on those challenges, how they're raising their kid, single mothers talking about their experiences, and then we went to a few um, care centers where they talked about funding, they talked about what they teach the kids there, how the kids react to certain things, the different ages, all the way from like 4 to like to 13 is, and so working on that was a really great eye opener
Mhm. Yeah,
of
I can
just
imagine.
of how without having childcare, there's so many people that aren't able to work. There's so many people that couldn't even get through anything. They maybe even homeless, because since they can't work and they have to stay at home, if they can't find a work from home job, then they can't work at all. And I'm grateful enough to have fantastic grandparents who are able to help out a lot. And so it's like the cost of daycare, some
Sure.
people are spending $2,000-3,000 a month. So
Yeah.
it can be very challenging. So working on that project, which ended up being about a 2.5 week project, was really nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sounds like you did some very important work too. So
Yeah,
definitely sounds like a great experience, but also doing positive in the world. Nice balance.
absolutely. And those are the best projects, man. Those are the best projects. It's you feel like you're using your talent to make a difference.
Yeah.
And so they played it at a conference out in, I think it was out in Pennsylvania. I'm not really sure, if I'm being honest. But they played at a conference, and I got a text saying that everyone at the conference loved it. So hopefully people, donate a whole bunch of money to help the cause.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it publicly available right now?
It is. I could send you the link if you
Yeah,
want.
absolutely. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
include it in the notes for sure.
Cool. Yeah, I could send you the
You're
link.
the
So
cinematographer on this?
yep, I was. Yep, it was me as the DP, and I worked with a director named Emmanuel.
Awesome.
And so
Yeah, I'd love to see it, and we'll absolutely include it in the show notes as well.
definitely, definitely, sweet.
And what upcoming work do you have? Anything on your plate at the moment?
Man, I have a good amount.
Okay,
I have a feature film that I just finished up that me and my wife did together.
awesome.
I have.
Graham?
You said, oh yeah, yep, yep. And I have what other projects that I have been pending? I have some stuff about a he's an artist. He does paintings, but all his paintings are like using Crayola crayons.
Okay.
That's still pending. Um, it's so funny, man, because when I don't look at my notes, it's like I know nothing. Let's see. There's a couple music videos, a couple nonprofit stuff, which was really nice. That talks about the importance of eating healthy and eating food that comes from the farm, and how that increases the money flow to farmers and the right places in the economy, and how it also helps families and stuff like that, and how it helps the community. So it's like
Yeah.
a docu style project on that. Um,
I already love it. I already practiced that personally, so
oh,
I'm already on.
sweet, sweet, yeah, man. I have some stuff with the Henry Ford Museum and the auto show that's coming up. So a good amount of things. Good amount of things.
Yeah, no, you're a busy bee. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the project with your wife. So this is a
Hmm.
feature film.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you mind talking a little bit about it, or I don't know if you're keeping it under wraps?
No, man. Actually, I mean, so in the coming weeks, we're going to actually do some promotion. So this is actually the first time that I will have talked about it publicly. So
Awesome.
this is I feel like a good time for you for sure because you're the first one to know. But it's a feature film. It's called Harmony in Motion, and the theme is how music and dance and being able to go through a plethora of life experiences can heal family relationships. And it's based off true events. Obviously, some are kind of um, emphasized or heightened a little bit more,
Yeah.
but it's the goal is for people to find themselves in certain find themselves watching and be able to reflect on similar situations, how they responded, how they act, or how another person, another friend had reacted, and to leave the theater after watching it or the couch if they're watching it, on whatever streaming platform it goes to, and be able to feel that connection that if you do certain amount of these things within your life that you are able to heal whatever trauma that you may have been through.
Oh, I love the idea of it, and it really taps into something that I think probably the biggest thing that I've learned as a writer
Mm-hmm.
is just that authenticity in creating what like
Yeah.
if what you create is honest, authentic, genuine, people will connect with it, and that's what people want. And I'm of the opinion of why a lot of the big blockbusters have felt flat over the past decade,
Mm-hmm.
decades, however long it's been, is these just aren't real people, and
Yeah.
like no one can connect with this, and it's like you're essentially going in just to see like, oh, I saw a big explosion, fun, yada yada, but it's really those movies where you really connect with the characters and the
Yeah.
story that those are the real impactful and the really
Yeah.
great films. So yeah, it sounds like
Absolutely, man.
fun.
Yeah, that's what the goal is, man. Connect with the people.
Yeah. Do you have a release plan?
Yeah, we do. A trailer should be out in less than a month.
Okay. That's
We
probably
plan.
around this will be released. So
Oh, sweet,
I
sweet.
hope to be able to include the trailer link in the show notes.
Oh, sweet, definitely. And we have plans for a premiere to hopefully come mid-February ish.
Okay.
We haven't had a specific date yet.
Yeah, definitely.
We want to do two. One will be in like the Okemos Lansing area, and then the other one would be in like somewhere in the Metro Detroit area.
Cool.
And then after that, the plan is to go to streaming. We don't know what platform yet. We're really just kind of weighing our options based off of the network of individuals that we know, and just the options that are in front of us.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, if you have, I'm not super experienced in this realm. I just have
Mm-hmm.
one distributed film, and then obviously Hometown Summer, which is in post production right now. I've done a ton of
Mm-hmm.
research. If you have any questions or you're wondering about anything, I would be happy to share the information I accumulated
Yeah.
and like, my opinions on some things. I'm definitely not a what's the word? I'm not an expert per se,
Of
or
course. Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't say like just do what I'm going to do because I think no matter what, if it's some sort of a risk, like there are going to be pros and cons, but
Yep.
I would be happy to share what I've learned.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Definitely, man. I mean, definitely, we can always connect offline after this, like
yeah,
at another, another time for sure.
yeah, yeah, and I'm sure you'll be posting the updates like with respect to the trailer and the premiere dates on your Instagram, correct?
Yes, yeah, we'll be
Awesome.
doing that. We started sharing a little bit of BTS,
Mhm.
but we wanted to, we're kind of waiting to make sure that we have everything together. So that way we don't have to start posting and then you don't see anything for a month and then you post again and you don't see anything for another month. It's like that way we can just have it just
Yeah,
keep coming, and then we get to the release, and then we were trying to put together a marketing plan for after it's released to keep pushing it.
for sure. Yeah, I'll be following along for sure. And I'll
Yeah.
also plug your Instagram in the show notes as well.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And then short term and long term goals you have?
Yeah, man. This is a tricky one because my short term goal, I always say if I can wake up every day and get 1% better,
Yeah.
that's a win.
Oh, yeah.
And some days it's a half percent, some days it's not even that. Some days you don't get better. Who knows? But I look at it as at least if I tried to get better, even if I felt like I didn't, I actually did because I didn't quit and I made an effort. And that's where people really develop as humans. As you know, like you're a football player, you might not want to work out, but you do it anyways,
Yeah.
just because you know that if you just do it, it's better than not doing it. Even if it's not the best workout, it's better than not doing anything at
Yeah.
all. And so for my short term goals, that's literally it. Every day have a plan, try to get better. And then the long term goal, that post always moves. I freelance obviously as a DP. I also have Fifth Media as a production company. What I've always worked on and what I'm still currently working on is Fifth Media has its own group of clients that are like retainer contract stuff, whether it's post production, whether it's shooting, whether it's photography. It's like his own little bubble. And then while that is going on, sometimes I'll have people come and help and shoot certain things while I'm not available. While that's going on, I freelance. And every now and then, me freelancing, that income outgrows what the company has. And then during slow months of me not DPing, I'm still working on certain stuff that is for like Fifth Media. And, as both of them are growing, the goal is just to keep both of them growing, right? But um, I'm also I'm a God believer, so I do believe that like as I'm pushing towards a certain goal, at the end of the day, whatever that's written for me to actually go towards and whatever I'm supposed to thrive in and whatever opportunity is supposed to come my way is going to come my way. So regardless, I can have a goal, I can go for it every day, try to get better and better. But at the end, whatever is meant for me to do, it'll happen.
Love the mentality for sure.
Yeah.
And then the last question before we jump into the concluding questions are
Yeah.
tell me about your Emmy nomination. I've never heard the story.
Oh
I'd love to
yeah.
hear.
Yeah, man. Let's see. We partnered with a company in Lansing called WKR. They're a public media house.
Mhm.
They have some of their shows are on PBS. Actually, most of their shows are on PBS. And they brought us on for a special project to do cover sports stories. And it was something that going into it, I went into it with taking less money. Even the crew that I was able to bring on, all of us took less money. And sometimes that's just the reality in certain things. And we knew that it was going to be something nice. I didn't know I was going to get a nomination off of it. To be honest, I didn't even care about getting a nomination off of it. I just wanted to do my very best on the project. And so it it worked out. It worked out, and it would have been great to win,
Yeah,
but for someone who wasn't even expecting it in the first place,
yeah,
I'll take it.
definitely. Oh, that's awesome. Was this was it local sports,
Mm-hmm.
college?
Yep, it was I'll say like local slash like regional sports because the it covered one specific team. It basically covered three different type of sports underneath one like broadcasted story. And so the football player was a local player. We covered the game of pickleball and how it was growing, nationally. So like that particular story, I think was more regional for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and we covered a boxing gym that provides work opportunities for people that have disabilities, and
Nice.
that was more local. But
Yeah.
it aired on the PBS streaming app, and so it was seen by thousands of people,
Yeah.
which is great, and it was a nice project to work on.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Yeah. So the three questions that I ask all of my guests.
Yeah,
If there's one writer and or director you could work with, who would it be?
man. So I thought about this hard,
Yeah.
okay, and I don't know if there's a particular director or a particular actor that I would just be like, oh man, I can't wait to work, or I would love to work with this person.
Yeah.
Um, for me, it's at this point right now, if there was any director that wanted to shoot a film with the intention of having the audience cry at some point,
Oh, okay. That's
if
intense.
it not necessarily, like a horror film or anything like that, something that's drama,
Yeah.
something that makes the audience think when they leave the theater.
Yeah.
If there was a director or a writer that was writing something like that, definitely give me a call, because that's something that I think at this point in my life I'm very passionate about. Because a lot of movies that make people come to tears means there was something or some life lesson that was being hinted on under the surface of whatever that was going on in the film that connected with that individual or with those groups of individuals. And I think that that's a powerful thing. And I would love to, be a part of something like that.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And is there an actor you would like to work with?
Whatever actor that can bring that to life,
All right. All right.
because I'll say this. I'm sure you've seen where actors have to cry on screen and it doesn't look authentic. It looks forced.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't actually need to cry. Sometimes it's just one tear.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not even just a tear. Sometimes it's just a reaction that you give, or it's the silence that you give. So whatever actor and director that understands that, because as long as I shoot it properly, it makes me even looking even better, and it makes the audience really see that, like, wow,
Yeah.
like I didn't think of it like this, or I feel for this person.
Yeah.
And and I feel like in moments like that, when actors are able to um make the audience almost think that they're really going through it,
Yeah.
you know, like I can't think of a real example, but I'll say if there was a movie about a woman who was a drug addict and was fighting, trying to recover multiple times and kept failing during her recovery journey,
Yeah.
if she played that role so well, 2 weeks later after the film release, you might see some fake news about her actually being a drug addict and people will believe it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that means that she just did so good that it doesn't, that whatever lie that people put out, people believe it because they're like, no, of course, I knew it. I knew she was. Like, she did too well for her to, to not already, to know what that is. And it's like, no, she's just a very talented actor.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. On a lighter note,
Yeah.
I asked this just because I'm so immersed in the world of comedy and comedy film.
hmm
Curious your top 5 comedy movies of all time.
Yes. So, I couldn't really find five without just kind of like naming some that I thought were funny but weren't like my top five. But I'll give you the two. Um, the first one is Friday.
Yeah, I just watched that on the airplane to Vegas over the
I
summer.
did okay. So Friday is a really good one, and then let me see. I'm blanking on the name. Let me what was it? Oh, and then Hangover is another one.
That, yeah, that's a classic for sure.
Hangover is a classic. Hangover 1 and 2, both of them are
Yeah,
phenomenal. And then if I wanted to actually do one more, I would say Rush Hour.
yeah, that Chris Tucker's in Friday, isn't he?
Yes,
Yeah, he's in both of those
yep.
very very different roles.
Yes, definitely. He's in there. I think, and this goes back to what you're talking about. Why a lot of films at the box office are failing, because it's not relatable. Friday is a very relatable film.
Oh yeah,
Hangover is a very relatable film. Well, not for me because I've never experienced what they went through, but to the masses,
yeah,
exactly, to the masses, they can connect with it. And then Rush Hour, the dynamic between Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan is just like, it's magical. So they're just funny, whether you
yeah.
relate to it or not, they're just funny. So, but yeah, so it's not really the top five, but those ones are the ones that came to mind. There was a couple that I was like, okay, those are funny, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't like list them as my. The other one was Little Man.
Oh, okay. I know what that is, but I actually haven't seen it.
Okay, yeah, with Marlon Wayans when he plays the baby,
Yeah.
and then I know that Scary Movie is like a horror comedy.
Oh, that's
Um,
definitely.
but
Yeah.
but it's it was that's another one. But even then, it was funny. But it was funny. But it was like I don't know if it was like my favorite, but it was funny.
Yeah. Right. No,
you
it's a
know.
fun one for sure. So, it has
Yeah, definitely.
you know them right at the beginning when they're spoofing Scream.
Yep. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yep.
that I love it. Marlon Wayans wrote that, didn't he? Or he
Yep.
directed it. He probably did both. Did you see that he's
He's doing another one.
yeah, it's number 6? Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna come
Yeah.
out next. Super pumped for that.
No, definitely, definitely. I not because I didn't know that for Scary Movie 4 and 5 that they didn't even have anything to do with it. So it's
Yeah.
actually pretty funny that they're calling him back to do a six.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Wayne's family had a fight with the studio over
Yep.
something, which doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, the studios are always beefing with
Yeah,
everyone.
definitely.
And yeah, I mean, you definitely see the quality drop off once they left.
Yeah.
Uh, oh no, it's cool. I think it's been a while, at least since he's done a big comedy. It's been a while,
Hmm.
so I'm really
Yeah.
looking forward. He's actually really funny, and I think that's another issue with comedies at the box office is that I feel like a lot of the times they're just not being made by like super funny people nowadays like they were like
Yep.
10, 20 years ago, and so it'll be really refreshing to have one of
Yeah.
those guys come back and make one.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man.
But great. No, it's been an awesome conversation. You definitely dropped a lot of great insights. I learned a lot personally just from listening to you talk. And
Oh,
yeah, I
sweet,
think
man.
it's be valuable to anyone who is an aspiring DP or someone who's early on in their journey for sure. Like, I think there's a lot there.
Yeah. I appreciate it, man. Well, thanks for having me, man. Next time, uh, let me know if you ever want to do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Thanks. Thank you for
Cool.
coming.